"Fly this helicopter and I'll marry you." CEO mocked the janitor. His real secret left her speechless. The rooftop helipad of Meridian Tower stood 52 stories above the city, and on that golden Tuesday morning, it became the stage for a humiliation that no one present would ever forget. The man with the mop didn't flinch. He simply stood there, handle gripped in calloused hands, eyes steady and quiet as a soldier who had learned long ago that dignity is something no one can take unless you surrender it yourself. And Lucas Nathan had surrendered nothing, not in the mountains of Afghanistan, not in the hospitals that followed, and certainly not here, on a concrete rooftop that smelled of jet fuel and arrogance. If you believe in kindness and second chances, this story is for you. Please take a moment to like this video, drop a comment below, share it with someone who needs to hear it today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, because every story here is a reminder that people are always more than they appear. Lucas had been the overnight janitor at Meridian Capital Group for 7 months. He was 34 years old, broad-shouldered, with a kind of quiet in his eyes that comes not from emptiness, but from having seen too much. The name tag on his gray coveralls read, L. Nathan, and to most people in that building, that was the entirety of who he was. A name tag, a mop. A man who emptied the trash before the executives arrived and disappeared before they noticed him. He had taken the job because he needed something simple, something that wouldn't demand the parts of him that were still healing. After 11 years flying Black Hawks for the United States Army, tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan, a combat rescue mission that earned him a commendation he kept in a shoebox under his bed. A roadside explosion had taken 3 of his crew members and left Lucas with a fractured spine, shrapnel in his left shoulder, and a silence in his chest that no doctor had a name for. He had spent 2 years in rehabilitation, 2 more trying to figure out who he was without the uniform, and then he had taken the janitor's position because it was quiet, and quiet was what he needed. He was mopping near the helipad service door that morning when the rooftop access opened and Victoria Crane stepped out. CEO of Meridian Capital Group at 38, Victoria was brilliant, driven, and had built her company into a $500 million empire through relentless ambition. She was also, on her worst days, the kind of person who forgot that the world was made of more than spreadsheets and strategy. This was one of her worst days. Her personal pilot had called in sick. The helicopter, a sleek Airbus H-125, was fueled, cleared, and waiting. She had a board meeting in Geneva that she could not, under any circumstances, miss. Her assistant scrambled behind her, phone pressed to both ears. 2 other executives stood nearby, watching. Victoria looked at the helicopter, then at Lucas, who had paused his mopping and stood to the side to give her space. She looked at him the way some people look at furniture. "You," she said sharply, pointing a manicured finger in his direction. "Do you know anything about helicopters, or do you just mop around them?" Lucas met her eyes calmly. "I know a little," he said. A short, cutting laugh escaped her lips. One of the executives behind her smiled. "A little," she repeated, her voice dripping with the particular contempt of someone who has never had to be humble. "Tell you what, janitor, if you can actually fly that helicopter, I'll marry you." She said it the way people say things they believe are impossible, like a dare thrown into an ocean with no expectation of it returning. Her colleagues chuckled. Her assistant looked at the ground. Lucas said nothing. He looked at the helicopter for a long moment, and something in his expression shifted, not to anger, not to hurt, but to something older and quieter. He set his mop against the wall, pulled off his work gloves, and tucked them into his pocket. Then he walked toward the aircraft. "Sir," her assistant started. "What is he doing?" Victoria demanded, her amusement beginning to dissolve at the edges. Lucas opened the cockpit door with the practiced ease of someone who had done it 10,000 times. He lowered himself into the pilot's seat, and his hands, those same hands that had been pushing a mop minutes earlier, moved across the instrument panel with a fluency that silenced everyone on the rooftop. Pre-flight check. Systems on. Rotor engagement. His eyes moved with precision, reading gauges, his lips barely moving as he ran through the protocol in his head, the same protocol he had memorized before he was 23 years old over the deserts of the Middle East. Victoria stood frozen, The laughter had left her colleagues' faces entirely. The rotors began to turn. Lucas leaned out of the cockpit and looked at her steadily. "Where did you need to go?" The silence that followed was the loudest thing any of them had ever heard. It was her assistant, Marcus, who broke it, not with words but by pulling up something on his tablet and walking it slowly toward his boss. He had Googled the name on the tag, L. Nathan, Meridian Tower, night staff. And then, as fingers do when they sense a story, he had searched further. What came up stopped him cold. A photograph, a younger Lucas, in full Army flight gear, standing before a Black Hawk helicopter in a desert landscape. A headline from 8 years ago. Crew chief and pilot Lucas Nathan credited with saving 9 lives in high-risk combat rescue operation. Below that, a commendation ceremony. The Distinguished Flying Cross. Marcus handed Victoria the tablet without a word. She read it standing there in the morning light, and something happened to her face that her executives had never seen before. The sharp lines of her authority softened. Her hand came up slowly to cover her mouth. 9 lives. He had saved 9 lives. And then the explosion. And then the years of recovery. And then a mop. A name tag. A rooftop where a woman in an expensive suit had pointed at him like he was invisible. She walked toward the cockpit slowly, the tablet still in her hand. Lucas watched her come, his expression patient, without a trace of bitterness. "I didn't know," she said. Her voice was different now, smaller, truer. "Most people don't," he replied simply. "They're not supposed to. That's not why I did it." She looked at him for a long moment, really looked at him perhaps for the first time. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Why this job, after everything?" He was quiet for a beat. "Because I needed to remember how to be still," he said, "and because healing doesn't always look like what people expect it to." Victoria Crane had negotiated with heads of industry. She had sat across from men who wielded enormous power and never blinked. But standing on that rooftop, looking into the calm eyes of a man who had carried more courage in his silence than she had in all her noise, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Shame, yes, but beneath it, something warmer, something that felt like the first honest moment she'd had in a very long time. She apologized, not the polished, per-crafted kind of apology she had issued in boardrooms, a real one, halting and genuine, with her voice slightly unsteady and her eyes holding his. Lucas flew her to Geneva that morning. He flew the way he did everything, with steadiness, with mastery, with a quiet that filled the cabin like grace. She sat behind him and watched the city fall away beneath them, and she thought about all the people she had walked past in her life without truly seeing them. All the name tags, all the mops, all the whole, extraordinary, invisible lives. If this story moved something inside you, if it reminded you that every person carries a world we know nothing about, please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and leave a comment below. Your kindness keeps these stories alive. Before we go, we have a special request just for you. Drop the word courage in the comments if this story touched your heart. Let's fill this section with courage today. Lucas Nathan never became headline news. He didn't ask for recognition, didn't seek a promotion, didn't trade his story for anything. He went back to work the following night, mop in hand, moving through quiet hallways. But something had changed in that building, because Victoria changed. She learned to say good morning to the people others looked past. She started asking names. She listened more than she spoke, and every time she stepped onto that rooftop helipad, she looked out at the horizon and remembered the man who taught her, without a single lecture, that greatness doesn't always wear the clothes we expect it to. Sometimes it wears coveralls, and sometimes it saves 9 lives and never tells a soul.